Good morning again. I will be your instructor. My name is Elaine. So today is our continuations from our last topic. It's about the vocabulary sum regarding the engine room. So this time, we are now on about the systems and fluids. So this time, the, these are some terms related to the various circuits and substances used in the engine room. So first that we have here, it's about the hydraulic system. So it says here that this is the system that uses a pressurized fluid or the hydraulic oil to transmit power and operate machinery. So meaning this includes the main engine for propulsion, auxiliary engines for power generations, and numerous fluid systems for cooling, lubrication, and fuel supply, and so much more. So we have here some key applications and some components to remember. So first is we have about the steering. So the hydraulic systems are fundamental for steering mechanisms, especially in larger ships where mechanical systems become unreliable. So next is our the cargo handling. So here again about the cargo handling. So they have power deck equipment like the cranes, winches, and windlasses that enables the fitting or the lifting and movement of the heavy cargo. We also have here what we call the control valves. So here, the hydraulic systems control the flow and pressure of fluids. So it often through the valves for various function like controlling the engine parameters and opening and closing the watertight doors. We also have here the rudder control. So the hydraulic systems are directly linked to the rudder that allowing the precise and responsive steering. So another one is what we call the actuators. So this time, the hydraulic cylinders, it converts the fluid pressure into the linear motion used for tasks like the lifting hatches, adjusting sails, or controlling the rudders. And one more is the what we call the stabilizers. So the hydraulic system, it plays a vital role in stabilizing the ships to preventing the rolling and ensuring that the smoother ride and particularly in rough seas. So how does this hydraulic system works? So first, the system rely on what we call the Pascal's law. So which states that pressure applied to a confined fluid is transmitted equally to all parts of the fluid. So this principle allowed for the generations of significant force to perform tasks like lifting heavy loads or precisely controlling the movement. So we have here now some types of our hydraulic system. So first is what we have here is what we call the open loop system or open loop control system. So this time it used the a pump to circulate fluid and then return it to the reservoir. So what are the benefits and drawbacks of a open loop system? So first, the benefits of this is the simplicity and also a potentially it more lower cost and ease to maintain or easily to maintain. The drawbacks of this is that they may not be efficient or precise as closed loop systems and can be more susceptible to disturbance or variations in operating conditions. Another type that we have here is what we call the closed loop system. So here, the closed loop system, this time the fluid is continuously circulated within a closed loop. So the benefits of this, it it can reduce the water consumption. So this is particularly important in areas with water scarcity or strict discharge regulations. It also have a lower environmental impact. So by minimizing the discharge, closed loop system can reduce the release of pollutants into the marine environment. Potential for the heat recovery. So in some cases, the heat removed by the cooling system can be used for another onboard process, improving the energy efficiency. So in contrast to open loop system, closed loop control system in ship, they uses a feedback to monitor the output and adjust the control actions accordingly. So most of the modern ships, they using a closed loop control system for primary steering and other critical function because of their greater accuracy and reliability. But however, the open loop system can still be used or can still be useful in a specific situations or as a backup system. Okay? So the next type that we have here is what we call a constant flow and constant pressure system. So this system, it this time it utilized the different method for maintaining the fluid or the fluid flow and the fluid pressure. So how does it work? So the constant flow system, it often utilizes a fixed speed pumps in open circuits or variable pumps in closed circuits. So they may also be incorporate flow valves or flow dividers to ensure a consistent flow to a different components. So what are these advantage and disadvantage? So first, precise control of the fluid delivery, especially important for machinery which specific flow requirements. And the disadvantage for this one, it can be less energy efficient than the constant pressure system. So if the load varies significantly, as the pump may need to operate at a higher power output just to maintain the flow. So how did they applicate this on the ship? So first, the hydraulic systems. So by maintaining the constant flow, it is important for a certain hydraulic actuators or motors where the precise speed control is needed. It also applies by the cooling systems. So the constant flow, it ensures the consistent cooling for critical machinery. So the uses also, it applies also in the lubrication system. So consistent flow of lubricant is essential for proper operations and wear protections of the moving parts. It applies also in the fuel system. So in some cases, the constant flow of fuel is necessarily for optimal combustions in engines. We also have here this time the constant pressure system. So the system where the pressure of a fluid is kept constant even if the flow rate is change or there's a flow rate is keep changing or there will be changes. So how does it work? So the constant pressure system, this can be achieved by using the variable pumps with the pressure controller by using the throttles that divert excess flow. So the advantage for this, it is more energy efficient than the the constant flow system. So when there are fluctuating demands, as the pump only needs to operate in the required pressure. So it's more responsive to changes in system demand. While the disadvantage is it may not provide the same level of precise flow control as the constant flow system. It's because this might be may require more complex control system. And also, the flow rate may vary depending on the system pressure, which may not be suitable for all application. So that will be some of its disadvantage. So how does it apply in a ship? So by port sa potable water system. So they ensuring that the consistent water pressure throughout the ship regardless of the demand. It's also using in the firefighting system. So they maintaining the adequate pressure for effective fire suppression. It also apply in the hydraulic system. So in some hydraulic system, the constant pressure is crucial for proper operations of actuators and other components. It also apply in the air conditioning system. So the constant pressure is often needed for efficient operation of refrigeration system. So what is the difference between the flow and the pressure? So the constant flow system, it prioritizes the maintaining of the system flow rate. So while the constant pressure systems, it prioritizes the maintaining on a consistent pressure. So in terms of the energy efficiency, the constant pressure system, it can be more energy efficient when they are varying demands, while the constant flow system, it can be more efficient when the flow needs are more consistent. So here, the constant pressure system can sometimes be more complex to implement and control. So especially when they are dealing with a multiple loads. So in summary, so both constant flow and constant pressure systems, they have their place in ship operations. So the choose between the demands on the specific requirements of the system and the applications. Like for instance, the constant flow might be preferred for processes requiring precise flow control, while the constant pressure might be more suitable for system where maintaining the consistent pressure is paramount. So it really depends. Okay, as we continue, we have here another type of the hydraulic system. It's what we call the electrohydraulic system. So this system, this is incorporate electronic controls for greater precision and automations. So what are these advantages? So the advantage of this electronic hydraulic steering is first is they have the precision and control. So meaning that the electrohydraulic system, it offer a precise control and over the rudder movement. So which is essential for maneuvering in tight space or during the challenging weather condition. So we have here what we call the pneumatic system. So this is the system that uses compressed air to transmit power and operate controls. So we have here what we call the air compressor. So this is to compresses the atmospheric air to create the high pressured air. We also have here what we call the air reservoir. So this meaning it stores or hold or collect the compressed air for later use. We also have what we call the filter regulatory lubricator or the FRL. So this is the treat to compressed air by filtering out contaminants. So by regulating pressures or and lubricating components for optimal performance. We also have here what we call the pneumatic valve. So this is to control the flow and directions of the compressed air to various actuators. We also have here the pneumatic cylinder actuators. So this one is to convert the compressed air into mechanical motions to perform a work. So we have here some advantages of this pneumatic system in the ships. So it says here first, it has the speed and precision. So meaning that the pneumatic system respond quickly and accurately, so it will making them ideal for the tasks requiring precise movements. It also have a compact and lightweight. So the pneumatic components are smaller and lighter than their hydraulic and electrical counterparts. So meaning it saved the space on board. And of course, it regards the safety. So the pneumatic system are generally safer than electrical system. So as they do not pose a risk of electrical shocks or fire. So we have here now what we call the scavenge system. So this is in two-stroke diesel engine. So the space below the piston where combustion air is introduced. So we have here first the location. So the scavenge space is part of the engine cylinder, specifically where the exhaust gases are expelled and replaced with fresh air. So it plays a vital role in the two-stroke engine cycle. So by facilitating the removal of the exhaust, and the introduction of fresh air for combustion. It also have a large pressurized tank, so it acts as the air receiver. So to hold and deliver the scavenged air to the cylinder. So the purpose of this is to have a regular inspections are essential to identify the potential issues such as the wear, leaks, and the excessive deposits. It also tackles about the frequency. So the inspection should be performed frequently just to detect if there's a wear mechanism and determine the root cause. So when you are inspecting, so you're going to look for a piston ring movement, carbon deposits, signs of seizures, cracks, and leakage of the water, fuel, or the lube oil. So next is about the operations and procedures. So have here this what we call the starting air. So this is the high pressured air used to start the large marine diesel engines. So the purpose of this is to maintain, or the main purpose is to provide the initial force to turn the engine's crankshaft, enabling the engine to reach a speed where it can sustain itself through the combustion. It is used for starting, um, stamping, and reversing the main propulsion engine and auxiliary diesels engines. So we have here the key components. So first is what we call the air compressor. So this is the machines that compress air to a high pressures. So and store it in the receivers. So these are also the storage tanks for the compressed air just to ensure they have the ready supply for starting. We also have here what we call the air start valves. So these are the valves located in the cylinder head. So it controls the flow of the compressed air into the cylinder at the correct time in the engine cycle. We also have here what we call the pilot valves. So these valves distribute the compressed air into the main starting valves in the correct sequence, ensuring that the engine starts in the proper directions. We also have here what we call the starting air distributor. So the mechanism that directs the compressed air to the appropriate cylinder in the correct sequence. So how this works? So when the engine is ready to start, the air start valve opens. So it will allow the compressed air to enter the cylinder. And the compressed air pushes the piston down, causing the crankshaft to rotate. So once the engine reaches a sufficient speed, fuel injections begin. So and the air start system is deactivated. So these are some important considerations or important things to remember. So interlocks. So the starting air system, it often includes the interlock to prevent starting if certain conditions are not met. So such as the turning gear being engaged. We also have here the air quality. So the air used for starting must be clean and dry to prevent damage to the engine and the components. It also have include the safety. So the regular maintenance and inspection of the starting air system are very crucial for reliable engine starting and preventing the accident like the starting line or the starting airline explosion. The redundancy. So meaning that the ships are typically have a multiple compressors and air receivers just to ensure the reliable starting air supply. So next that we have is what we call debunkering. So this is the process of taking on fuel oil. So this bunkering is the maritime industry's term for refueling ships. So they called it bunkering. So the term bunker, this is originally referred to the compartments of the steamships that stored coal. But now it refers to the fuel oil and other petroleum products used to power the ships. So the bunkering is also crucial because the ships cannot carry enough fuel for long voyage and need to replenish their supply at various points. So why this bunkering is very important. So the bunkering is essential for the operations of ships and the global shipping industry because it ensures that the ships can continue their journey and transport their goods and passengers worldwide. So the bunkering, it is also involves in the logistics, fuel management, and compliance with the environmental regulations. So how this bunkering works? So the shore-based bunkering, fuel is supplied from pipelines, tank trucks, or bunker barges located at the port. So the offshore bunkering, the fuel is supplied to the ship at the sea. So it often via bunker barge. It also have here the ship to ship bunkering. So the fuel is transferred directly from one ship to another. So, in bunkering operation, it requires a strict and safety procedure just to prevent the accident like fires or oil spills because it needs to be also comply with the international and local government regulations including those related to fuel quality and emissions. So and it says here that the quality of the bunker fuel is very important for efficient and reliable ship operations. So, by managing the supply and delivery of the fuel, it is a complex process involving the procurement, storage, and transportations. So, another word that we have here is what we call the watchkeeping. So this is the act of being on duty in the engine room. So by monitoring the machinery and ensuring the safe operations. So the watchkeeping, it ensures that the personnel are always on duty just to promote and monitor, I mean, just to operate and monitor the ship systems, machinery, and navigations. So the officer of the watch or the OOW are responsible for the safe navigation of the ship. So including the maintaining a proper lookout, monitoring instruments, and complying with the coalition's regulations. So the schedules of the watch keeping, it is a common system involves three watches. So each is lasting 4 hours with personnel rotating through the different ships. So the OOW, or the officer of the watch, is the officer in charge of the bridge during their watch and is responsible for the overall safe operations of the vessel. So maintaining the proper lookout is a critical duty of the watchkeeper to identify potential hazards like other vessels, objects, or changes in weather. So the the machinery monitoring. So the watchkeeping also involves in monitoring the performance of the ship's machinery and systems. So ensuring they are operating within the safe parameters. So during the emergency procedures, the watchkeepers are trained to respond to emergencies and follow the established procedures for situations like man on board or fire. It also have the accurate record keeping, including the logbooks, is essential for tracking events, changes, and incidents during each watch. And it also requires some effective communications between the watchkeepers, the bridge team, and other departments is vital for coordinating operations and ensuring the safety. So, so the watchkeepers also have the duties to extend to port. So where the personnel monitor mooring operations, cargo handling, and other activities. So meaning it's not only on the ships, it extends until on the port. Okay? So that will be all for our discussion for today. So it's all about still about the engine operations and vocabulary. So we already discussed the system and operations, and we will be having a continuation in our next meeting. So again, this is your instructor Elaine, and here in our English Maritime course. Again, I would like to thank you everyone for listening.